I didn't plan to humiliate my own granddaughter. Lord knows that's not how my mother raised me. But when she swore my engagement ring was lost, I had already seen it winking under fluorescent lights at a pawn shop 3 blocks from her apartment, tagged and priced like any old trinket. That diamond had survived a South Dakota winter, a military relocation, and 42 years of marriage. But it couldn't survive a 22-year-old's impulse and a fiancé with champagne tastes on a beer budget. If you're ready for this journey, make sure you hit that subscribe button and give this a like so you don't miss the updates. And let me know in the comments what city you're watching from. It's always lovely to see where everyone is. I'm Carol, 65, retired school librarian, widow, and the type who keeps her receipts in a labeled accordion folder. I bake banana bread for new neighbors and iron my napkins because I like things neat, even when life isn't. My engagement ring was my one indulgence. It wasn't huge, but it was perfect. An old European cut diamond that caught the light like it remembered every laugh my late husband Bill and I ever shared. When he passed 7 years ago, I had the prongs tightened and the band resized for my arthritic knuckles. And then I wore it the way some folks carry a rosary. It kept me company in line at the pharmacy and made me brave at the dentist. It was my yes to a whole life. My granddaughter, Haley, is my daughter Linda's eldest. She was the first one to call me Grammy, the first to ask for a sip of my tea and wrinkle her nose at it, the first to press sticky crayon drawings into my hands as if she were handing me the sun. I don't tell you that to make you cry, just so you'll understand why the betrayal felt like stepping on broken glass in your own kitchen. You're barefoot, you're home, and suddenly the floor is dangerous. Haley had always been a magpie for pretty things. As a little girl, she'd pile my costume jewelry around her throat and pretend to be a movie star, wobbling in my pumps, laughing. As a teenager, she had a habit of borrowing and forgetting to return things. My silk scarf for a school play, a vintage brooch for prom photos. Those came back eventually, even if I had to pry them out of a cluttered makeup drawer. I never thought she'd touch the ring. We all draw lines for the people we love. She leaped over mine in a single bound. It started with a Sunday afternoon. Haley and her fiancé, a man named Brent who sells business growth packages online and calls himself an entrepreneur, I call him a windbag with a ring light, came by for iced tea and to talk about wedding plans. They're doing a farm chic thing, mason jars, string lights, a grazing table that costs more than my first new car. Haley was giddy, and I let myself get swept into it. I told her she could use my lace tablecloth for the head table. I even offered my cake knife and server from 1978, the year hair was big and so were dreams. We were laughing, and I went to the bathroom. I remembered turning the faucet off and hearing Haley in my bedroom, her voice sing-songy. "Grammy, where's that ring? Let me see it again, please." I dried my hands and went in. I kept the ring in my nightstand, tucked in a velvet pouch inside a small wooden box. It lived there when I wasn't wearing it. I took it out and slipped it onto my finger. Haley cooed, Brent clapped like he was humoring a toddler. Wow, that's vintage's all in. That could be worth like 10 grand. "It's worth more to me," I said. And he fake winked at me. Of course, sentimental value. I wore it the rest of the afternoon and then put it away. Or at least I thought I did. That night, when I went to say my prayers and take it off, the wooden box was there, the velvet pouch was there, and the ring was not. I'm not a hysterical person. I emptied the drawer, checked the carpet, looked in the sink just in case my memory had skipped a groove. Nothing. I called Linda, feeling foolish and worried both at once. "Mom, you probably misplaced it. You've been busy, you had bridge club, then church, and the knee injections." "I'm not 90, and I had it today. Haley saw it." Linda was quiet a beat. "Mom, don't start." Her voice took on that tone she uses when she's already decided who's reasonable and who is not. It stung. "I'll talk to her, okay? But I'm sure it'll turn up." In the morning, I checked again, because hope is a stubborn weed. Then I put on my orthotic sneakers and drove to Haley's apartment. I didn't call. I imagined the ring hiding in a couch cushion like a naughty child. Haley answered the door in a cardigan that cost more than my monthly water bill, barefaced and gorgeous, with that youth sauce glow that makes you want to pinch cheeks.
"Granny, come in," she sang out. "Sweetheart, I'm here about the ring," I said, and her face changed. Only for a second, a flicker. But I've shelved enough books to catch the difference between a period and a comma at 20 paces. She blinked and smiled. "I'm so sorry. I was gonna call you. I should have told you last night. I think I lost it. I tried it on while you were in the kitchen, and then, I don't know, it must have slipped. I'm so embarrassed." She talked fast, soothing as hand cream, words meant to make me accept a story I hadn't been asked to believe. "I'll look everywhere," she promised. "I'll pay to replace it." "It's not replaceable," I said, and she did that pouty lip that used to work on teachers. "I know." I searched the apartment while she trailed me, wringing her hands. Under the couch, the trash, the bathroom sink. Nothing. Brent came out of the bedroom with messy hair and big faux concern and said, "We'll make it right, Carol." He said my name like we were equals, standing on a problem, not like I was the elders whose trust he'd just let his fiancée trample. I went home and sat at the kitchen table and didn't cry, because crying felt like a luxury I couldn't afford. Instead, I brewed coffee I didn't want and called the pawn shops. There's a kind of pivot that happens when you're a woman of my age. We go from weeding the garden to picking up the phone with a voice that makes men on the other end straighten up. "Hi, this is Carol with a quick question," I said, and I gave a description. Old European cut, 6-prong, solitaire, platinum band, with 2 little nicks on the underside from where Bill and I burned a Thanksgiving pie and the pan bumped the ring. I could feel the memories I was listing like fingerprints. 2 shops said no. The third, O'Malley's on Carson, said, "Ma'am, we don't usually disclose items in inventory by phone." "I understand," I said, "but it was stolen from my home and I'm filing a report." I wasn't yet, but my voice made the words true enough. He paused. "Come by," he said. "I can't promise anything." I put on lipstick the way soldiers put on armor and drove to O'Malley's. The bell over the door dinged. It smelled like old coins and male cologne and the kind of carpet that's seen hard times. The man behind the counter wore a white shirt with a stain on the pocket and a wedding band that didn't fit. He looked at me with that careful face people make when they don't know whether you're going to yell or faint. "I'm Carol," I said. "We spoke." He nodded and motioned with his chin. "We got a piece in yesterday matches your description." Came in with a young blonde. Said it was her grandma's and she was decluttering. I nodded like gravity had shifted. "May I see it?" I asked. He took it out from under the glass like it was any other item, not a heartbeat. The diamond winked at me as if nothing bad had happened. It was mine. I knew it the way you know your own handwriting. No one can forge that little slant. I leaned in, and there, under the setting, were the 2 tiny nicks from a burnt pie in 1984. I felt dizzy, and then suddenly, very, very calm. I could hear Bill in my head. "Steady on, kid." I said, "I'd like to buy it." He winced. "Legally, I can't just hand it over, ma'am. State law's got a holding period. If you have a police report and proof of ownership, we can start a process. But the seller, well, she showed ID and signed. We got a receipt." A receipt. Of course there was a receipt. "I'll be back," I said. "Don't sell it." He gave me a look like he wanted to help, but was also tethered to his boss's rules. The holding period is 14 days. It won't go anywhere till then. 14 days. Haley's wedding was in 8 weeks. I had time to be careful. When I got home, I pulled out my accordion folder and the little fireproof safe where I keep Bill's discharge papers and our marriage certificate. There it was, a jewelry appraisal from 1996 when we had it insured. I also had photos from our 40th anniversary where the diamond caught the candlelight like a star had fallen on my hand. I made copies, tucked everything into a manila folder labeled ring because putting things in capital letters makes them behave, and drove to the police station. I didn't march in like a TV detective. I walked in like a respectful citizen with good posture. The officer at the desk was younger than I could be his grandson. His nameplate said Martinez. I told him my story, carefully, calmly. I didn't say, my granddaughter stole my ring. I said, my granddaughter had access to my home and was the last person who saw the ring. I've located what I believe to be my property at a pawn shop, and I'm filing a report. He scribbled, asked me questions. Did you give your granddaughter permission to remove the ring from your home? No.
Do you have proof of ownership? I handed him the appraisal, the photos. He photocopied them. We'll open a case, he said. If the pawn shop has records, and they will, we can put a hold on the item and contact the seller. Please don't contact her at work, I said reflexively, then caught myself. Actually, contact her wherever you need to. She should answer for this. He gave me a card with a case number. I felt weirdly proud of that little rectangle, like I was holding my own spine. I didn't tell Linda that day. I know some of you will shake your heads, but hear me. Sometimes you have to pick your moment. Linda thinks conflict is a stain you can scrub out with the right cleaner. I used to let her. Not this time. Instead, I baked a casserole and brought it to Haley's the next evening. Chicken and rice with poppy seeds, crunchy topping, the whole church potluck special. Haley opened the door and I smiled like I was visiting any old day. How's the search going? I asked pleasantly. Brent was on the couch, working, which means he had 3 tabs open and one of them was a video of a man telling other men to wake up at 5 a.m. and hustle. He gave me a tight nod. Haley wrinkled her nose. Grammy, I feel awful. I can't find it anywhere. I think I left it at your house. Well, I tore my house up and down. Nothing. She pressed her hand to her heart. I'll keep looking. I promise. I know you will, I said. And I meant it in a way she didn't understand. That night, Officer Martinez called. Ma'am, we contacted O'Malley's. The item's on hold pending your claim. We also contacted the seller using the ID from the pawn slip. Who was the seller? I asked, because a woman can be hopeful and still require facts. He was quiet for a beat. Your granddaughter, Haley Benson. I closed my eyes. Thank you. He said we'll be in touch regarding next steps. In the meantime, please don't engage with the suspect about this ongoing investigation. He said it kindly, like he knew I was already composing a lecture. I said, Officer, I'm a librarian. I can keep my mouth shut when a book is on hold. And then I sat at my kitchen table and let myself cry, quietly, without theatrics. Not because the police confirmed what I knew, but because my granddaughter had signed her name to the betrayal. Adults spell their choices. The next morning, Linda called. Mom, what did you do? Her voice was tight. Haley just called me sobbing. I took a breath. I filed a police report. The ring is at O'Malley's. You called the police on your own granddaughter? I called the police to protect my property, I said, keeping my voice level. She pawned the ring. We don't know that. She signed her signature on the pawn slip, and then realized I just told Linda something I learned from the police. Librarians keep confidences. Grandmothers sometimes blow them. I closed my eyes. I'm done pretending. Linda was silent long enough that I wondered if the line had dropped. Mom, she finally breathed, this could ruin the wedding. I stood up, walked to the sink, and looked out at the bird feeder Bill had built with 2 nails and a joke about squirrels. She ruined the wedding the second she decided to pawn my ring and lie about it. She's a kid, Linda said weakly. She's 22, old enough to sign her name. Linda resorted to logistics when emotion got scary. What do you want? For her to go to jail? I sighed. I want my ring back and I want the truth. After that, we'll see. She hung up with a promise to handle it, and I made myself a tuna sandwich and ate it over the sink like a bachelor because grief makes you forget plates. 2 days later, Haley showed up at my door with flowers from the grocery store, lilies that smelled like a funeral. She had a little scrape of mascara under one eye, a calculated smudge that said, I've been crying, but not, I've been sobbing.
She tried to hand me the flowers, and I stepped aside so she had to bring them in herself. Petty? Maybe. People don't learn from convenience. Grammy, she started, and I held up a hand. I spoke with the police. They have the ring on hold. They have the pawn slip with your name. She burst into tears, real ones, the kind that hiccup. I'm so sorry. Brent's car needed repairs and the wedding deposit. Everything's expensive. I was going to buy it back, I swear. I just needed a little time.
Then why did you lie? I asked, and my voice was not kind. It was steady. Why did you tell me it was lost? I panicked. She slumped into a chair, a marionette with cut strings. I thought you'd understand if I could fix it quickly. It was only going to be a few weeks. I didn't think you'd find out. You didn't think I'd find out, I repeated. That ring has been with me longer than you've been alive, Haley. It survived more than you can imagine. Did you imagine I'd just forget it existed? She hiccup-laughed through tears. You always say you're forgetful. I have arthritis, not amnesia, I snapped and then inhaled. Do you realize the position you've put everyone in? Me, your mother, yourself? I'm sorry, she whispered, small as a weed between pavers. I believe you're sorry you got caught, I said. Now you have choices. We can proceed with the police, and you can explain, or you can make it right with me, properly. Her eyes flicked up. What do you want me to do? First, you're going to call O'Malley's and tell them you relinquish any claim. Second, you're going to come with me to pick up the ring when the hold lifts. Third, you're going to reimburse me for the fees, however long it takes, with a payment plan if you need it, but you're going to do it like a grown-up, with a signed promissory note. And fourth, you're going to tell your mother the truth without your little edits. She nodded so fast her ponytail bobbed. I'll do anything. And, I added, you're going to work with me on something else. Consider it a restitution. Her mouth parted. What? You'll see, I said. Now, don't imagine I'm a saint. I was furious. But fury fades. What lingers is the line. I wanted Haley to feel it under her feet from now on. Here is where we do not step. You can call me old-fashioned. I call it family. The next week was an ice bath. Linda called daily, exhausted, apologizing, then defending, then apologizing again. Brent sent me a text that said, "We're all in this together," which made me wish the phone had a laugh track. I ignored him. Officer Martinez, bless him, did his part. He said, "The shop's cooperating. You'll be able to reclaim the ring once the hold expires. The DA's office will decide about charges, but given the circumstances and your preference, it might not go that far." My preference, I repeated carefully. I want consequences that teach, not punish for sport. He grunted, which is cop for, I've met a lot of people. You're interesting. In the meantime, I quietly began stitching a plan that wasn't about courtrooms. It was about truth, accountability, and, yes, timing. If you've ever hosted Thanksgiving for 25 people and made sure the green bean casserole comes out hot with the turkey, you know timing is everything. I called my lawyer, Delia, who used to volunteer on career day at my school and who now wears pantsuits that could cut glass. I need a simple promissory note and a clause about public apology in case of default. Spicy, she said. Send me the details. I also paid another visit to O'Malley's. The man with the stained pocket smiled when he saw me. Ma'am, good news. We've documented everything. The ring will be ready for release when the hold's done. And, if you want, I can print you a copy of the pawn ticket for your records. You'll need it for the case and for the claim paperwork. You're a gem, I said, and then laughed because the pun was a little too perfect. He laughed too.
He printed the pawn slip, Haley's signature, the date, the amount, the speed with which she'd traded me for a quick fix. I didn't let it break me. I slid it into a protective sleeve, the way I once protected first edition covers in the library. And just when he thought he had me backed into a corner, he forgot who he was dealing with. Stick with me, because you'll want to see how this plays out. Around this time, the wedding machine began to grind louder. There were emails about seating charts and kinds of forks. Haley sent a group text asking for meaningful heirlooms to display at the welcome table. I almost choked on my tea. The audacity of a generation raised on curated confessionals. I said nothing in the thread. In a private message, Haley wrote, "I'm keeping my head down. I'm so sorry." I responded, "Good. Keep working." She had started making payments, small ones, from her paycheck at a boutique where dresses cost more than mortgages. $50 here, $75 there. Every time she Venmo'd me, I wrote, "Received. Thank you." Paper trails aren't for punishment. They're for memory.
When the 14-day hold ended, I took Haley with me to O'Malley's. She wore a plain sweater and no makeup, which was either humility or strategy. I didn't care. The man behind the counter looked between us, the living version of a cautionary tale. He set the ring on the velvet pad, and I picked it up and slid it onto my finger. It felt like a promise kept. Haley watched, eyes shining. She whispered, "I'm sorry," as if the ring could grant absolution. I turned to the clerk. "May I have a small jewelry box? Something pretty?" He showed me several. Satin, leatherette, velvet. I chose a powder blue velveteen one with a little bow. It was too sweet, almost twee. The kind of thing that says, "Instagram me." Perfect for my purposes. I bought it, and I bought something else. A second, plainer box, just like it, but empty. I asked him to print a duplicate copy of the pawn receipt. "For my records," I said. He obliged. At home, I sat at my dining table and opened the pretty blue box. I placed the ring inside and let myself look at it in that small theater. Then I closed it, locked it in my safe, and took out the second box. I placed the pawn receipt inside. I added a note on my monogrammed stationery. "For safekeeping. Love. Grammy." Then I closed that box too and wrapped both in identical tissue paper, tied with identical ribbon, and put them side by side. If you think that's cruel, think about what lesson is learned when there's no sting. I wasn't planning to destroy her. I was planning to teach her. In a way the whole family could witness without me raising my voice. In the weeks leading up to the wedding, I played my part. I attended the bridal shower and smiled when Haley opened a blender like it was a precious relic. I put on a floral dress and told her she looked beautiful, which was true, and told her I loved her, which was also true, and told her I was proud of the woman she was becoming, which was true in the present continuous, but not yet in the past tense. Brent toasted family values, which made his mother dab her eyes and me grip my water glass tight enough to leave a crescent moon in my palm. There were whispers, of course. Families are Greek choruses. My sister-in-law, Peg, whispered, "Is it true about the ring?" over deviled eggs. I said, "The ring is accounted for," because I was practicing diplomacy ahead of the main event. 2 days before the wedding, Linda came over with fabric swatches and anxiety. She said, "I wish all this could be normal. I keep thinking about the photos. Will people see, I don't know, the tension?" "Photos don't show tension. They show posture. Stand up straight." She laughed despite herself. "You're impossible. I'm a mother and a grandmother, which means I'm a memory keeper and the bad cop when necessary." She looked at me long. What are you going to do? I said, I'm going to give a speech. Tell the truth without telling it the way you're imagining. I'm not a wrecking ball, Linda. I'm a bell. She frowned. A bell? I said, you ring a bell so people pay attention. The wedding day arrived hot and bright, the kind of late summer day that makes you forgive the season for every sticky morning. The venue was a renovated barn with chandeliers and a bathroom nicer than my first apartment. Mason jars abounded. Chalkboard signs reminded us to dance like nobody's watching and share your love on social. #Ben and Haley's Say I Do. I had a corsage pinned to my left shoulder and my ring on my right hand. I felt invincible and very, very human. Haley looked like a cloud in lace, all softness and shine. She hugged me before the ceremony and whispered, "Thank you for being here." I kissed her forehead and said, "Where else would I be?" Brent wore a suit that fit almost too well. He winked the same fake wink he'd once given me. The officiant mispronounced our last name, which made me smile because some things never change. The ceremony was short. Vows were said, rings exchanged, irony noted, and everyone cheered as they walked down the aisle to an acoustic version of a pop song I couldn't place. Cocktail hour featured tiny crab cakes and a violinist who made even the clinking of glasses sound fancy. I sipped sparkling water because I wanted my mind sharp. I watched people watch us. People are always watching, even when they pretend not to.
When the DJ announced toasts, my heart beat steady. Linda spoke first, a sweet, fumbling mother-of-the-bride speech about love and patience. Brent's best man told a story about a camping trip that sounded like a lawsuit waiting to happen. Then it was my turn. I stood, took the microphone, and smiled at a sea of faces. Some I loved, some I tolerated, all of them wrapped in the shared fiction that weddings create. This is the beginning. Everything is bright. I said, "I'm Carol, Grammy to the bride, and a woman who believes in 3 things: good coffee, sturdy shoes, and the truth." There was polite laughter. I married my Bill in 1978. We didn't have mason jars and we didn't have hashtags, but we did have community. Neighbors who'd pat your tire before you even noticed it was flat. Friends who showed up to move your couch and stayed to paint the walls. People who told you when you were wonderful and, more importantly, when you were out of line. A ripple. A question. I went on. I want to talk about family values. Not the kind you put on a sign, but the kind you practice when no one's looking. In my family, we make mistakes. Oh boy, do we. But in my family, we also make amends. Amends is an old word. It means to fix what you broke, to put your hands in the mess you made and clean it with your own elbow grease. I saw Haley's throat move. Brent looked confused in the way of men who've never studied tone. "I brought a small gift for the bride," I said, and from under the table, where I'd tucked them earlier, I brought out the powder blue velvet box. The pretty one. It's something old, something borrowed, something true. The room leaned in the way people do when they expect something shiny. I held it in my hand and felt the weight of what I could do and what I should do. I made my choice. I said, "I'll give it to you now, but don't open it yet." Haley reached out with a trembling smile. I placed it in her hands and covered them with mine for a second. Warm, dry, intentional. Then I reached back under the table and took out the second identical box. I placed it next to my glass. "I also brought this," I said, "for later." I smiled like a cat with cream and let the crowd laugh. They did, relieved to find a joke where they feared a lecture. But before I sit down, I want to say this. Love is not a fairy tale. It's a contract. Not a business contract, don't panic, Brent, but a moral one.
It's a promise to tell the truth even when your voice shakes. It's a promise to protect what matters and to repair what you damage. Haley, sweet girl, you come from a long line of women who learned that the hard way. We survive by facing what's real. I raised my glass. To Haley and Brent, may you be real with each other and may you be brave enough to make amends when you mess up, because you will. We all do. People clinked. The DJ cued music. I sat. Linda squeezed my knee under the table, hard enough to say both, "Don't you dare," and "Thank you." I patted her hand like a woman who just loaded the dishwasher the right way and wanted someone to notice. Haley stared at the box in her lap, then looked at me. I smiled, nodded. Not yet. Later. She placed it next to my second box, Twin Secrets in blue. We ate chicken that was a little dry and potatoes that were a little salty. People danced. Brent performed a dip that made his mother gasp and me roll my eyes. When it was time for the cake, the planner, clipboard, headset, seriousness, whispered, "After the cutting, the bride will do gifts from family on the stage, just a couple of special heirlooms. Is that okay, Ms. Benson?" I said, "That's perfect." And that, my dears, is where I'll leave you for now, on the edge of a powder blue box and a lesson wrapped in velvet. He was about to get exactly what he deserved, and I had a front row seat. Don't go anywhere. The planner did her little hand flourish, and the DJ dimmed the lights just enough to make everyone kinder looking. After the cake cutting, vanilla with raspberry, a bit too sweet, but I've eaten worse at church basements. We were shepherded toward the small stage under the barn's wagon wheel chandelier. The sign behind us said, "From our families with love," with a spray of baby's breath like static around it. Someone had placed my powder blue box on a pedestal next to a gilded frame holding a sepia photo of Brent's great-grandparents. My second, identical box sat at my place, quiet as a chess piece waiting its turn.
The planner, breathless, gave me a "whenever you're ready" smile. I stepped up with the grace a lifetime of sensible shoes will give you and took the microphone. "You've already heard me talk about amends," I said. "Here's the other side of that same coin, stewardship. In my family, when something is entrusted to you, you don't just guard it, you carry the story of it." I picked up the blue box. It felt heavy with more than velvet. Haley's eyes were wide. Brent's mouth was already primed into that sales brochure grin he wears when he senses an audience. I looked at my granddaughter. "Sweetheart," I said, and the room hushed because the word dragged its own history behind it. "What's in here is part of our story. I'm placing it in your hands as a reminder of what we keep and how we keep it." I crossed the stage and put the box in her palms. Her fingers trembled. Her nail polish was a pearly pink that made her look much younger than 22. "Open it," I said, not unkindly. I saw Linda's hand fly to her mouth from the corner of my eye. The in-laws leaned forward as one organism. The DJ raised the volume of the soft instrumental behind us like a man hiding in a coat closet. Haley slid the lid back. She looked down. Everything in her went very still. If you've never heard 200 people inhale at once, it sounds like a wave sucking back from the shore. The receipt was right there, crisp as a slap. O'Malley's pawn, date, amount, description. My monogram note on top, for safekeeping, love, Grammy. Haley's face crumpled, then rearranged into something brave. She lifted the note with shaking hands. The crowd wasn't sure where to rest their eyes, on the bride, the grandmother, the box, or on their own drinks. I took the mic again, but I didn't raise my voice. "We don't keep secrets that rot," I said. "We bring them into the light where they can't fester. Today is a day for vows. This is mine. I will tell the truth in love, and I will expect the same from the people who love me."
Someone near the back said, "What is happening?" in a whisper that wasn't a whisper. Brent stepped forward, face turning a blotchy red that clashed with his pocket square. "What are you doing?" he hissed at me, and then remembered the audience. "Carol, this is wildly inappropriate." "Ah," I said, tilting my head. "As opposed to pawning my engagement ring and lying about it?" There's a particular silence that only falls in two places: courtrooms and family gatherings gone sideways. We were squarely in it. Peg, my sister-in-law, made the sign of the cross like she does in traffic. Brent put on his manager voice. "That's a gross mischaracterization. Haley's voice, small but clear, cut him off. "It's true." Linda made a sound I'll hear in my bones until I go to my own wedding in the sky with Bill. The mother of the bride chair squeaked as she stood, sat, and stood again, all without quite deciding to do either. Haley looked at me, then out at the room. She held the receipt in both hands like a fragile thing. She said, "I made a terrible choice. I pawned my grandmother's ring because I thought I could fix everything before anyone noticed. It was selfish and stupid, and I lied about it." She turned to me. "I'm sorry." I watched Brent because people revealed themselves in other people's confessions. He didn't look at her. He looked at the crowd. There were murmurs, little eddies of opinions spinning in floral dresses and rented suits. Brent's mother barreled forward, a small woman with a big, lacquered beehive of hair. She said, "This is harassment." She said brightly, the way people smile when they've decided to be awful in public. "On my son's wedding day? Really?" I adjusted my corsage. I said, "Harassment would be posting about it online with photos. I've done nothing of the sort." I angled my voice toward the DJ booth. "And I won't. Weddings should be remembered for dancing, not shame." He bobbed his head like a man grateful for a script. The planner flitted at the edge, eyes enormous, headset buzzing with backstage panic. Do we move to first dances?" she whispered. The poor thing looked like she'd been given a baby and a bomb. "Not yet." I turned to Haley and held out my hand. She'll put the receipt in it. I tucked it in my clutch. Paper trails belong with the person who knows how to keep them dry.
"Folks," I said to the crowd, "eat your cake. We're fine." It was the mother voice, cultivated in PTA meetings and deployed now like a traffic cop's whistle. People obeyed because they wanted to. Relief is a herd instinct. We stepped off the stage into a thicket of relatives and queries. Linda grabbed my elbow. "Why now?" she hissed. "Why here?" "Because she's about to begin a marriage," I said, keeping my face pleasant for the cameras. I wanted her to start with the truth. Couldn't that have happened privately? Linda's eyes were glossy and wounded. "It did," I said. And she lied again. A lie told softly is still a lie. "Carol." Linda rarely uses my name like that. It's usually Mom or Ma or a sigh. Hearing it in that tone was like an old injury aching in the rain. "Carol, I get it. I do. But this, I said evenly, is accountability with boundaries. No yelling, no name-calling, just sunlight." She swallowed. "I'm going to check on her," she said, and slipped away. Mothers walk toward the fire. Grandmothers tend the exits. Brent's mother came at me again, and this time she brought a friend, a well-heeled blonde with a mouth like a paper cut. "We will be speaking to our attorney," the blonde declared, "because that's what people say when they don't know what else to threaten." "Lovely," I said. "Give him my lawyer's card. Delia Carter. She enjoys a spirited letter." I smiled like I'd offered them a recipe. Brent himself took me aside near the dessert table.
We were flanked by a tray of petit fours and a tower of macans too pretty to eat. His jaw worked like he was chewing on a grudge. "You have humiliated Haley," he said, eyes hard. "I gave her a chance to tell the truth," I said. "She took it." He leaned in. "You think you're the moral authority because you've got a filing cabinet full of paperwork? You're a bully with nice manners." "Possibly," I said. "Or possibly I'm a woman who built a life on not letting the people I love drown in their own denials." He stepped closer, low voice. "Do you have any idea how much this wedding cost? Vendors talk, people gossip. If this gets out—" I said, gently, "It's already out. You're standing in the middle of it." His mouth opened, then snapped shut. He glanced over my shoulder, and his face reorganized into a smile. "Pictures," he said brightly, and pivoted away so fast I could smell the cologne he'd bathed in for the occasion. He was about to get exactly what he deserved, and I had a front row seat. Don't go anywhere. I went back to my table, sat down, and finally ate a bite of cake. It wasn't any better. It rarely is, after a hard truth. The first dances happened, muted, sweet. Haley's eyes were red, but she smiled for the photos. She hugged me again before the bouquet toss. "Thank you," she whispered. "Not for this. For not throwing me away." I could never, and I kissed her cheek. "But I will never hand you scissors again." On the way out, Brent slipped a folded piece of paper into my hand the way boys in high school used to pass notes. "This is the payment schedule Haley and I worked out to repay you. We'll handle it." He said handle like it was a living thing he could cup to death. At home, I unfolded it. It was a mess. No dates, no amounts, just a vague paragraph about good faith and "as soon as cash flow allows." I scanned it, amused and unsurprised, and then slid it into a plastic sleeve behind the actual promissory note Delia had prepared and Haley had signed with a real pen and a real date. Adults sign in ink. Boys hand out napkins. The week after the wedding, the footage started showing up on phones. Not from me. Cousin Mariah's boyfriend had filmed the entire heirloom segment on his brand new camera without even realizing the drama he was catching. By Monday morning, the family group chat was a potluck of opinions. Someone wrote, "I can't believe you did that," which they meant as a rebuke, and I understood as an admission that they too had seen the receipt-sized ghost. I ignored the chat. Online storms feel big and are usually barely weather. In the offline world, the winds are steadier. The boutique where Haley worked cut her hours until things died down, which I found tacky. I called the manager, not to scold her for the reduction, but to praise Haley for showing up on time every day and to offer a character reference if the woman needed one. "We don't give references for current employees," the manager said in a voice that had weaponized saccharin. I said, "Understood." Then I dropped off a card addressed to Haley with a grocery gift card tucked inside. Consequences should sting, they should not starve.
Linda, poor creased Linda, oscillated between angry and grateful like a child on a seesaw. We had coffee at my kitchen table while the afternoon light made stained glass of the maple tree out back. "I think you were right," she said finally, rubbing her temples. "I hate that you were right, but I do." "I don't need to be right," I said. "I need my granddaughter to learn that we don't metabolize shame by burying it next to the good china." She half laughed, half cried. "You and your librarian metaphors." "They're cheaper than therapy," I said. "Though I believe in therapy like I believe in sturdy shoes." 2 days later, I got an envelope on thick paper with an embossed return address from a law firm with a surname that was all consonants. The letter used all the big boy words.
defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, tortious interference. It accused me of maliciously derailing a wedding and spreading falsehoods that could adversely impact my client's business. The client was not my granddaughter. It was Brent. I put the kettle on. Good news deserves coffee. Bad news deserves tea. I read the letter again, this time as if I were grading an essay. It was blustery, impressive to anyone who doesn't speak legal. I do, a little. Delia has tutored me over the years via the occasional upline neighbor dispute. I scanned the list of alleged falsehoods and circled 3 with a red pen, librarian style. 1, that I had accused Brent of orchestrating the pawn. 2, that I had presented the receipt, out of context. And 3, that my public shaming had caused measurable damage to his brand, Brent Benson, LLC. I dialed Delia. "Prepare to feast," I said when she picked up. "I'm bringing you a letter that will tickle your appetite." She snorted. "Is he actually threatening to sue his wife's grandmother on paper?" "I am," I said. "I suspect he also thinks LLC is a force field." Delia told me to bring everything. And Carol, bring the police case number. It will be the garnish. When a woman like me says she brought everything, I mean that I packed a tote bag like a field kit, my copy of the promissory note, Officer Martinez's card paperclip to the intake form, the pawn shop receipt, the appraisal from 1996, the photos, and the little card from the jeweler who sold us the ring originally. I'd found it tucked into Bill's old wallet. And a timeline in my own handwriting, neat as a ruler, listing dates and times like rosary beads. I also brought the second, powder blue box, the one I still hadn't opened for anyone. It would not play for the defense, but I liked its weight in my bag, a reminder of restraint. We sat at Delia's sleek conference table, the kind of furniture that keeps secrets by being too solid to wobble. She read the letter, eyebrows rising and falling. She said, "He's hoping you scare easy. You don't." "No," I said. "I scare at snakes and medical bills. I do not scare at boys with stationery." She drafted a response that made me giddy, precise, lean, mildly bored. It stated that I had made no false statement of fact, that the only document displayed was an authenticated receipt bearing my granddaughter's signature, and that I had neither named nor alluded to Brent in any accusation. Then she included an invitation. Should your client wish to discuss any perceived damages, he may do so by providing itemized proof and consenting to a full discovery process regarding his finances, business representations, and communications with third parties in the weeks leading up to the wedding. I clapped my hands together like a hen flapping her wings. "Oh, Delia, that last part." She snorted, like a woman who had ordered a dessert she didn't need. "If he wants to talk about brand damage, we can talk about brand. We can also talk about the screenshots I'm reasonably certain Haley has of texts where he suggested selling some of your grandma's stuff to cover the DJ. I blinked. "Do we have those?" "Not yet, but I bet you a pound cake they exist." I left her office lighter than I'd gone in. I stopped by the grocery store and bought Haley's favorite seltzer, the kind that tastes faintly of fruit and brags about its lack of calories like that's a personality. I dropped it on her stoop with a note, "Proud of you for telling the truth. Keep going." Then I went home and, because I am not made of granite, stood in my living room and had a good, chesty cry. I let it all out, the grief for the girl who used to braid my hair with pipe cleaners, the anger at the boy who had learned how to monetize charm, the sadness for my daughter caught between a bell and a beehive hairdo.
The next morning, the phone rang before 8. It was Officer Martinez. "Miss Benson, just a heads up, your case file is being closed as property returned to owner. Victim declines further prosecution. Standard. I'm making a note that the pawn slip in question has been documented and verified. If you need a certified copy for any civil matter, let me know." "Thank you," I said. "How's your mother's hip?" "She's meaner with the walker than without it," he said fondly, and we said our goodbyes. That afternoon, Haley knocked. She wore no makeup and a sweatshirt with the sleeves pushed back. The girl I used to pick up from soccer, when her mom got stuck in traffic. She sat and wrapped her hands around a mug of tea like a pilgrim at an oasis.
I talked to Brent, she said. And already the past tense was doing some heavy lifting. Oh? I said, cutting lemon bars into squares, because sugar makes hard talks stick. He said you ambushed him. He said you're trying to ruin his business. He said... She trailed off, then looked up. Then I thought about the last 2 months. He suggested the pawn shop. He said he'd fix it. He told me not to tell you because you'd overreact. He had me rehearse what to say in case you asked. Her voice broke. I'm so ashamed. Shame, in the right dose, is a fever that kills infection. Too much, and it kills the patient. I slid the plate toward her. Eat, then we plan. She nibbled a corner. What do we plan? Boundaries, I said. You're married. I'm not going to tell you to leave him. That's your garden to tend. But I am going to teach you how to identify weeds. She sniffed and smiled. You and your metaphors. Look at us. 2 women in a kitchen making metaphors out of mess. I reached into the sideboard and took out a folder. Here's the payment schedule. Non-negotiable. Here's a list of what I won't do. I won't lie for you. I won't give you heirlooms to keep at your house. I won't cover for your husband's shortfalls. Here's what I will do. I'll show up if you tell the truth. I'll answer the phone on the first ring if you say, I need help, not, I need a secret. And I will love you loudly, even when you're unlovable. She cried in that quiet way that doesn't need a tissue, just time. Okay, she said. Okay. She reached into her tote and pulled out a small stack of printed screenshots, texts from Brent that would make a pastor cuss. There it was. Babe, your Grams has so much stuff, nobody will miss 1 or 2 pieces. You can buy it back after the wedding. Think bigger. And, we're a team, we do what we need to do. Don't be dramatic, it's not like she wears it. And, the one that set my molars grinding. You're overreacting. If she makes a fuss, we'll say she's forgetful. I breathed in through my nose and out through my mouth the way my doctor taught me for my blood pressure. May I borrow these? They're yours, she said, shoving them toward me as if they were live snakes. No, I said softly. They're evidence. You keep the originals. I'll take copies. I placed them on my printer's flatbed, hit the warm gray button, and watched the truth etch itself onto new paper. Then I slid the copies into my ever-fattening binder. Last thing, I said, and went to the safe. I took out the other powder blue box, the one with the circle indent where the ring had nested, now empty as a church on a Tuesday. I held it out. This one stays with me, I said, tapping my ring finger. This one is for you. I opened it so she could see the hollowness. When you've made 5 payments on time and written a letter to yourself that you can read aloud without crying, you can fill this with something you buy yourself. A symbol of what you keep. She swallowed hard. You're not giving me the ring. No, darling, I said. I'm giving you the chance to earn something that will mean as much to you as this means to me. The ring is mine. Your character is yours. She nodded slowly, like someone feeling the shape of a new tooth. When she left, I sent Delia the screenshots with a note. For our collection. 10 minutes later, Delia wrote back, Oh, he's foolish. This will be fun. 3 days after that, Brent's attorney emailed an updated letter that was somehow both nastier and more defensive. In it, he argued that weddings are sacrosanct events, a legal term I've somehow missed in all my years on this earth, and accused me, of elder gaslighting. I chuckled so hard, I had to put the letter down and go to the bathroom like a toddler. Delia fired off our reply, a 2-sentence masterpiece that attached the police case number, the pawn slip, and 3 screenshots with timestamps. She CC'd Brent directly because sometimes you have to show the boy that the teacher is aware he's cheating off the wrong test. She ended with, We remain open to constructive discussion, as noted previously.
However, any further baseless threats will be treated as harassment and responded to accordingly.
That night, I got a text from an unknown number. It was Brent. "You had no right to interfere in our marriage," it said. "Stay out of it or we'll make you regret it." I put the phone face down on the counter and stared at my reflection in the microwave door. The woman looking back at me had laugh lines and good posture, and a ring that sparkled like it always had. I took a deep breath and forwarded the text to Delia and Officer Martinez with a simple caption. "From Brent. FYI." Officer Martinez replied within the hour. Documented. "If you receive further messages of this nature, let me know." He added a thumbs-up emoji, which made me weirdly fond of him. Delia's reply was one line, and it was perfect lawyerese distilled into country common sense. "Let the boy talk." Meanwhile, the vendors started calling. I didn't spread a thing, but news travels the way it chooses to. The florist had been paid, the photographer too, but the DJ's check had bounced, and the lighting company claimed their deposit had been reversed via a dispute. The lighting manager, a woman named Serena, who sounded like she'd had this conversation more times than she liked, called me because the planner had told her I handled family matters. "Ma'am," Serena said, "not my business, truly. But they're saying you ruined the reception. We did our job, and now they're playing games." "I understand," I said. "Send me your contract and a copy of the reversal notice. I'm not paying you, but I'm collecting puzzles and you have a piece." She emailed within the hour. I printed everything and slid it into the binder behind a tab I labeled Brent Finances. The tab made a satisfying click when it snapped into place. Later that afternoon, Linda came over with 2 paper bags of returns, centerpieces, unused napkins, ribbon spools. She looked so tired. I poured her a glass of iced tea, and we sat at the table like war widows. "She keeps thinking about what you said at the wedding, about amends being elbow grease," she murmured. "I think Haley can do it." She chewed her lip. "I don't know if Brent can." "Then that's something she'll learn," I said. "Preferably with a therapist." She smirked. "I booked her an appointment." "Of course you did," I said, and patted her hand. The next morning brought one more letter, this one not on nice paper. It was a cheap photocopy of a cease and desist, unsigned, with a Gmail address at the bottom masquerading as a law office. It demanded that I relinquish all defamatory materials and stop telling lies about Brent's business, which is thriving and legit. The word legit on a legal document is a tell, like a fake Chanel bag where the stitching's wrong. I didn't give this one to Delia. I wrote one sentence across the top with my red pen. "Not from counsel." Then I 3-hole punched it and slid it into the binder, which was starting to look like a high schooler's backpack the week before finals. That afternoon, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Miss Benson, my name is Kendra. I used to date Brent. I saw a clip from the wedding and, well, I have some messages you might want to see." There was a pause, then a flurry. "I'm not trying to cause trouble, but he owes me $3,000 from a business investment and blocked me when I asked him for it back." I closed my eyes and thanked the patron saint of pattern recognition. Then I called Kendra. We spoke for an hour. By the time I hung up, I had 3 more screenshots, the name of a coaching program Brent had sold and never delivered, and the contact info for a man in Omaha who'd been promised a mastermind weekend that never materialized. Do you see it? The weave tightening? I didn't need revenge in the way the movies show it. No gasoline, no sugar in gas tanks. I needed sunlight. I needed receipts. I needed enough truth in one place that when the wind hit it, it wouldn't scatter. That night, I took the empty powder blue box from my dresser and set it on the table next to my binder. The box and the binder looked like the beginning of a fable, an idea and the proof it existed. I brewed tea and stood at the sink and watched a raccoon toddle across the backyard like a burglar in a fur coat. "Bill," I said to the window, "I'm doing my best."
The following day, I asked Haley to meet me at the credit union. "I'm going to open an account with your name only," I said on the phone. "You're going to set up automatic transfers for your payments to me. You're going to set up an emergency fund that no one but you can touch. That is a boundary in bank form."
She showed up 5 minutes early and held the door for 2 older gentlemen because I've raised her right, even if she forgets sometimes. We sat with a patient woman named Loretta, who used a pen with a daisy glued to the top. Loretta walked Haley through the accounts like she was reading from a children's book about money. This one is for saving your future. This one is for paying your past. Haley nodded, serious as a deacon. When we walked out into the sunlight, she looked lighter. "Thank you," she said. "Don't thank me," I said. "Thank yourself in 10 years. We were halfway across the parking lot when Brent's car, newer than he should be able to afford, pulled in fast enough to make someone honk. He parked crooked and got out, sunglasses on, hair styled within an inch of its life. "What are you doing?" he demanded, voice too loud for the place. "Banking," I said mildly. "A habit I recommend." He flicked his eyes at Haley. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I don't have to tell you everything," she said, and I wanted to carry her around the lot like she'd won a spelling bee. His smile was tight as a tourniquet. He said, "We're a team. We decide things together." "Did we decide the pawn shop together?" she asked, just as mild as me. He flinched, then recovered, which is what he does best and worst. "Unbelievable," he said to me. "You're turning her against me." "I'm asking her to look in the same direction as her own integrity. Where she goes is up to her." He took a step like he might get in my face, then saw I wasn't moving and thought better of it. He got back in the car, revved the engine for the drama of it, and sped off. Haley and I stood in his dust and watched the credit union doors swing open and close, open and close. Back home, another email from Delia waited for me. Subject line, discovery. Inside, a short note. The Omaha man had responded. He had receipts. He was willing to talk. So was a woman in Tulsa. So was a high school friend who'd loaned Brent money last year. The edges of this thing were getting crisp. And just when he thought he had me backed into a corner, he forgot who he was dealing with. Stick with me because you'll want to see how this plays out. Delia says good paper is the librarian's sword, and I've been sharpening mine a long time. Within a week, my binder looked like a one-woman archive. Tabs labeled police, pawn, promissory, Brent finances, vendors, other victims. I added one more, AG complaints. Because some light isn't just showing your neighbors, sometimes you open the blinds for the state. I started small. I helped Serena from the lighting company file a clean, polite complaint with the credit card processor, attaching her contract and the dispute that mysteriously appeared after the wedding. Then I called the state attorney general's consumer protection line. I told them I was a retired school librarian who'd learned to color code chaos and file on a coaching business that took money for goods never delivered. The woman on the phone, patient, like a nurse who's seen everything, asked if I could email documentation. I smiled at the receiver like an old friend. "I can do better," I said. "I can index it." I didn't go on a crusade online. I didn't post on Facebook with a long caption and a string of ominous emojis. I wrote in black ink on white paper and put copies in envelopes like I was sending invitations to a grown-up party called accountability. Meanwhile, Haley was trying. She went to therapy, came home with a worksheet about boundaries that made her look both 14 and 40. She brought me receipts from her new bank account like a kid with report cards. She cooked dinner for Linda and I one night, shaky enchiladas, bless her heart, and she started saying full sentences about Brent without hedging them in apologies. He can be charming, and he can be cruel. Both can be true. Many men make a living on the first while pretending the second is a rumor. Brent, for his part, did what men like him do when the walls get damp.
He bought a fresh coat of paint. He shaved his beard into a sharper line, posted 3 photos in a row on Instagram of his wrist by a steering wheel, and announced a new weekend seminar called Scale Summit, from side hustle to 6 figures. 2 days, $1,999. Only 12 spots. The flyer had the kind of stock photo smile that makes your teeth itch. "Where is he holding it?" I asked Delia, who can read a promotional page like a murder scene. She said, "A loft downtown, rented event space. These places never ask questions as long as the check clears."
Do they ask about business licenses? I wondered sweetly. Delia smiled that cat smile. Not if no one reminds them they should. Here's what I didn't do. I didn't call the venue and lie. I didn't pretend to be the city. I did something women my age are very good at. I called and asked earnest questions until a young man in a headset told me everything he knew without realizing it. "Yes, we host workshops," he chirped. "Yes, we require insurance certificates. Yes, we ask for a copy of the organizer's business license." I thanked him, hung up, and opened the Secretary of State's website on my old laptop. I typed in Brent Benson LLC and saw, like a pearl in an oyster, if the oyster was a bureaucratic database, the words "past due," "annual report not filed," "status delinquent." "Bill," I said to the empty room, "he didn't pay his $35 fee. Some villains hoard gold. Some forget the cheap paperwork and give you the rope." I printed the status page and slid it into my binder. Then I sent Delia a tidy note. "Venue requires license. License is delinquent. Insurance too?" She replied with a 3-word poem. "Working on that." 2 hours later, she forwarded me an email from a risk manager at the venue asking Brent for proof of insurance and current business registration per policy. Delia had simply CC'd the right person with the right words. People think strategy is fireworks. Often it's carbon paper and a CC line. Meanwhile, the exes and clients trickled in like folks showing up to a potluck with Tupperware. Kendra with her $3,000 investment, the Omaha man with his mastermind weekend that never happened, a mom of 3 in Tulsa who'd paid for a branding intensive and got a PDF with typos. I did not organize them into a mob. I made a group email with the subject line, "Documenting, not defaming." I set the rules like a librarian sets the tone on the first day of school. No threats, no name-calling, only dates, amounts, and attachments. You'd be surprised how grateful people are to have a box to put their pain in that isn't a Facebook comment thread. One night, after Haley had finished her therapy homework and was scrubbing her face like she was trying to erase her 20s, she said, "Do you think I made a mistake? Getting married, I mean." I dried my hands on a dish towel. I said, "I think you made a choice. You can make another one. Choices aren't tattoos, honey. They're ink, but most of them can be edited with enough patience and light." She nodded. "He says he can fix it. Does he show you the plan, or does he show you the smile?" She closed her eyes. "The smile." Then asked to see the plan. The day before Scale Summit, Brent posted a video. He stood in a living room that wasn't his, staging as a tale as old as Instagram, and told the camera about haters. He said that when you're leveling up, people will try to drag you back into their bucket. He said, "My wife and I have been dealing with some negativity." He smiled at the camera and, with the casual cruelty of a man who thinks he invented persuasion, added, "Families get jealous." I ate a cracker and replied to no one. Jealous of a delinquent license and a bounced DJ check? The only green with envy in my house is the parsley plant on the windowsill. Delia, who watches the internet like a hawk who's learned to use a mouse, texted, "Check your email." The venue had followed up, "Per policy, we'll need your certificate of insurance and business registration by COB today to proceed." Brent replied with a PDF of a certificate that, if you squinted, looked like it had been made by a cousin on Canva. The venue wrote back, "This is not valid. Contact your insurance provider."
Brent wrote, "They're closed," which was rich because he'd sent it at 10:12 a.m. on a Tuesday. The venue's next email was crisp as laundry. "Without valid documentation, we will cancel your reservation and refund per terms." Delia whispered, on paper, which is the only whisper I believe in, "We don't require cancellation. We require compliance." He sent another PDF. It was creative. Delia forwarded it straight to the venue's legal department with a sentence so short it arrived with its own drumbeat. "We advise reviewing this for authenticity." By 4 o'clock, the venue had postponed Scale Summit pending documentation. Brent posted a new video claiming he'd chosen to reschedule for a bigger space due to demand. His 12 spots had not sold out. We knew because 2 of the victims on our email chain had registered fake names and gotten the auto-responses begging them to claim your seat before it's gone.
Haley showed up at my house that evening with a bag of groceries and an apology pie. Store-bought, but she'd tried. "He's furious," she said. "He says someone's sabotaging him." "Sunlight sabotages mold," I said, and cut us 2 slices of pie. "Eat before your blood sugar decides to divorce you." She laughed through her nose the way she used to when she'd sneak 1 extra cookie and think I didn't notice. Then she pulled a folded sheet from her tote. "I saw this on the kitchen table," she said, and handed it to me. It was a notice from the bank. Overdraft protection activated. Attached were 3 withdrawals to a gambling app Brent had sworn he'd deleted because he just liked the graphics. I stared at the numbers the way you stare at a hole in drywall and realized there's a bigger problem behind it. "How much does he owe?" I asked. "Too much," she whispered. "I didn't know." Shame knocked again, that overachiever. I didn't let her in. "You know now," I said. "That's the point of a bell. You hear it, you look up." The next morning, Delia called. "Don't panic," she said, which is what you say right before you tell someone to hold on to a chair. Brent's lawyer called me. He wants to resolve this quietly and suggested a mutual non-disparagement agreement. "Interesting," I said, buttering toast like it was an enemy of the state. "He wants me to stop telling the truth." "He wants you to stop showing the truth," Delia corrected. "We told him you're amenable to a standard agreement if it covers only untrue statements. We don't promise not to speak, we promise not to lie, and we define lie in a way that would make his skin itch." I smiled. "He'll never sign." "He doesn't have to," she said. "He just has to understand he doesn't scare you." We hung up and I opened my binder to a fresh page. "Plan," I wrote at the top, then underlined it. Not because I needed it. The plan was already in motion, but names make things behave. I called Officer Martinez to say thank you for being steady, for doing his job, for not making me feel like a hysterical grandmother with a vendetta. He said, "You'd make a good detective," which I tucked into my pocket like a peppermint. Then he added, "If any of the folks you've connected with want to file reports, they can. Hard to make criminal cases out of this stuff unless the dollar amounts stack, but paper helps." So I emailed the group, careful as always. "If you want to file reports, here's the case number to reference and the detective's card. Up to you. No pressure, no froth, just the facts, ma'am, delivered with gentleness." That afternoon, the doorbell rang. It was Brent. No sunglasses, no cologne cloud, just a man with stubble and a jaw tight enough to crack pecans. I didn't invite him in. We stood on my porch like neighbors who both know the fence is in the wrong place. He said, "I'm here to pick up Haley." I said, "She's not here. She's at work." He squinted. "You turned her against me." He said it like an accusation and a prayer. "She did that herself," I said. "You just gave her a lot to work with." He looked past me into the tidy little living room with Bill's recliner still where it always was, as if my husband might come back and claim his spot. "You know," Brent said, quiet like a snake is quiet before it strikes, "you're not going to live forever."
I plan to be irritating for at least another 20 years. When you're gone, he continued, and his eyes did a flat thing that made me want a hosed porch. Who's gonna keep her in line? I'm not keeping her in line. I'm reminding her she has one. He laughed, short and mean. You really think your little binder will save her? No, I said, but it'll save me from forgetting the truth. That's enough. He put his hands in his pockets, rocked back on his heels, like he had a stage and an audience and a clicker in his hand, and only 17 seconds to sell the next thing. Stay out of my business, he said. Show me your valid license and canceled debts and clean contracts, and I will, I said. He left. He didn't slam the door because it wasn't his to slam. 2 days later, a manila envelope arrived with no return address. Inside, a thumb drive, a list of file names, and a note in block print. Check the VIP folder. I handed it all to Delia because I'm not playing spy with a flash drive on my own laptop. She called after an hour, low-voiced. Invoices, she said. Refund requests. Texts about how to make them wait until the chargeback window closes. It's not definitive yet, but it's a pattern.
Patterns are my favorite, I said. They make quilts and indictments. She laughed. You are the only client who could say that sentence. We decided on a move that wasn't dramatic, but had teeth. Delia drafted a letter, not a lawsuit, not a press release, addressed to Brent and CC'd to the small set of people whose names appeared on those VIP invoices. It wasn't mean, it was math. Our office is in possession of documents indicating XYZ. We request confirmation of refunds or fulfillment by date. Failure to respond will result in referrals to list of agencies and coordinated civil action. Please govern yourself accordingly. That last line is lawyer sarcasm at its finest. Haley, for her part, began sleeping at Linda's every other night. I just need space to think, she said, and I kissed the top of her head and tried not to panic like a mother bird when a chick totters toward the edge. She came by with laundry and courage. We ate soup, we made lists, we learned to sit in silence without flinching. On a Tuesday afternoon, my landline rang, the sound of my youth. It was the venue manager from Scale Summit, voice tight. Miss Benson, I'm reaching out because Mr. Benson is alleging you interfered with his event. He sent us an email that suggests we should deal with you. We won't, but I needed to hear from you directly. I asked a few questions. I did not pretend to be a government official. I did not threaten anyone. I forwarded your team publicly available information from the Secretary of State. She exhaled. That's what I thought. We're canceling his reservation permanently. Don't ruin his life, I said, surprising myself. Ruin his ability to commit fraud in your building. She paused. You're careful. I'm old. It looks the same from far away. That evening, another letter, this one from a different lawyer, landed in Delia's inbox. Polite. Cooler. It said Brent was open to a structured path toward resolution. Delia texted me a screenshot and a 3-word message. He's bleeding cash. We met in Delia's office the next morning for coffee strong enough to wake a churchyard. She said, here's the fork in the road. She drew 2 lines with a pen on a legal pad. You can accept a private settlement with non-disparagement, confidentiality, repayment, and an apology letter to you and the vendors. Or you can keep going. AG, small claims, a civil suit from the group. The first gives you money and quiet. The second gives you sunlight and mess. I looked at the lines. I thought of my ring, warm from my finger. I thought of Haley's face when she read those texts, and the way her shoulders sat a little higher after every good decision. I thought of the vendors' invoices, the X's emails, the VIP folder, like a rotten potatoes drawer. Is there a third line? I asked. Money plus sunlight for certain people plus a specific kind of apology. Delia's eyes crinkled. Define specific. I want an apology where he names what he did. To me, to Haley, to the folks he sold air to. I want refunds documented. I want him to sit in a room and say it out loud, sober, sitting up straight. And I want it recorded, so no one can pretend later that it was all a misunderstanding. Delia tapped her pen. He'll never agree. Then we take the messy road, I said. I can make casseroles for angry people. I cannot make peace with a lie. She drafted what we took to calling in our emails the offer he can't perform, repayment schedule notarized, apology letters that used verbs instead of euphemisms, a small private meeting where he would read a statement of wrongdoing to a handful of affected people, no cameras, but an audio file shared with attendees, a clause that said if he missed one payment or if he harassed any of us, online or off, we would unleash the filing cabinet. AG complaint, small claims with exhibits, public reviews with documentation, the whole 9 yards. We sent it. We waited. Waiting is an art. You fill it with laundry and long walks and puzzles, so you don't fill it with worst-case scenarios. Haley came over and we did a jigsaw with a picture of a lighthouse. She said, they put all the blue pieces together in the box like a joke, and I kissed her forehead for noticing that. On Friday, his lawyer replied with a redlined version that took out every tooth and left only the gums. Delia wrote back, no. On Monday, another red line. He was willing to repay the vendors, not the exes, willing to sign a vague apology to me, not to Haley, and would consider a private meeting if it was off the record. Delia sent our original again, unchanged. She wrote, this is the offer, not a suggestion.
On Wednesday, the casino withdrawals hit again. Haley sent me a screenshot with a single word, done. She packed a bag. She went to Linda's. She blocked his number for the night because she was tired and sometimes peace is a technical setting on a phone. The next morning, Brent sent me a text that began, you won, as if this was a game. I forwarded it to Delia and Martinez, and then I did something I wasn't sure about until I did it. I texted him back. No one wins when you lie, I wrote. There are only losses you can still shrink. Do better. He didn't respond. He did, however, post a story of himself at a gym with the caption, grind never stops. I made myself a sandwich so the eye rolling wouldn't give me vertigo. The following week, a letter from the AG's office arrived acknowledging receipt of the complaints. We cannot confirm or deny any investigation, it said, which is bureaucracy for we see you. I put it behind the AG tab like a priest sliding a host into a mouth. Then, a shift. An email from Brent's new lawyer, shorter than a haiku. My client accepts the terms as presented with one modification. The private meeting will include only A. Miss Benson, Carol, B. Miss Haley Benson, and C. 2 individuals who claim to be owed refunds. He wanted to cherry-pick his audience. Delia looked at me. We could push, she said, or we could pick the 2. Pick the 2 who will speak in sentences, not speeches, I said. People who can say, you sold me X for Y, I received Z. Not, you're the devil, I hope your car explodes. She smiled. You'd be an excellent jury selector. I'd bring cookies, I said. Bribe's the wrong word, but a cookie is a cookie. We chose Serena from the lighting company, clear-headed, exact, and the Omaha man with the neat spreadsheet of dates and charges. Haley asked to bring Linda. Brent's lawyer said no. Delia said, then no. Meeting. He caved. Sometimes the best leverage is a daughter with a spine who looks like the nicest woman at the church bake sale until you try to short her change. The meeting would be at a small conference room Delia rented by the hour, neutral ground. I baked lemon bars because I'm me. Haley wore a cardigan and brought a notebook. Linda sat on her hands like she'd promised someone she wouldn't punch a boy, even verbally. Brent walked in 10 minutes late with hair that had been punished into place and a jaw that looked like it belonged to a man chewing tobacco on a porch. He sat. He didn't touch the lemon bars. He took the printed statement Delia slid across the table and read it, eyes casting down, then up, like the words were boulders he had to climb. He used verbs. I sold. I promised. I failed to deliver. I took. I lied.
He said my name and Haley's. He said, I asked Haley to pawn her grandmother's ring and lie about it. The room didn't fall apart. It didn't need to. The truth sat there in the middle of the table next to my lemon bars and her notebook and the little digital recorder with its red light like a heartbeat. Serena spoke next. We did the work, she said, sliding the invoice across. You reversed payment after the event. Pay me. He wrote a check. Delia took a picture of it, front and back. The Omaha man did the same with his spreadsheet and his refund. Haley didn't speak until the end. When she did, her voice was even. You're going to pay my grandmother what you owe her, she said, and you're going to leave me alone while I figure out if I can forgive you. He looked like someone had set a glass down too hard on his favorite table. Then he nodded and said nothing smart, which was the smartest thing he did all day. After, in the parking lot, Haley exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for a season. I don't know if I'm done, I mean with him, she said. You don't have to know today, I said. Just don't go home with him today. We went back to my house and ate the leftover lemon bars on paper napkins with snowmen on them, because I buy in bulk and don't check the season. Linda finally cried, the good kind, like rain after a long, hot stretch. She said, I wanted her wedding to be happy. We want a lot of things, I said. We take what we get, and we tend it. 3 days later, someone posted a clip of my wedding toast. Not me, and not cousin Mariah's boyfriend, we figured that out, but someone at a table behind the DJ who'd apparently been filming in case the bride did a TikTok trend and ended up capturing an older woman in a floral dress talking about the truth. The clip went mildly viral in the way these things do when they hit a vein. Grandma uses velvet box to teach bride about accountability. The comments were half, what a queen, and half, what a monster. I read 5 and stopped. In the kitchen, I set my phone face down next to my binder, which is heavier than opinions.
A day later, Brent posted a video of himself crying. He said he was being harassed, that private family matters had been weaponized, that he'd made mistakes but didn't deserve to be canceled. Haley called me and said, "Do I respond?" I said, "No. Pay your bill, feed your cat, take a walk. That's the only response you owe anybody." She did. She started sleeping through the night. She made 3 payments on time. She wrote himself a letter and read it to me without crying. "I forgot who I was," she read. "I am remembering." In the weeks that followed, the refunds trickled in. Brent's lawyer sent check images. Delia logged them with the zeal of a woman who once alphabetized her spice rack, and still does. The AG's office sent a second letter. "We have received additional complaints and are reviewing." I put it behind the tab, then put the binder on the shelf and gave my wrist a rest. I took Haley to the jeweler one afternoon, just to look. "When you're ready," I said, "we'll find you something that says, 'I kept what was mine.' It doesn't have to be a diamond. It can be a tiny gold band or a pendant shaped like a comma, because this isn't the end of your sentence." She laughed, and I thought, there you are. The girl who wrinkled her nose at my tea is still in there, just older and wiser, and vaccinated against certain kinds of charm. And because life isn't a straight line but a messy embroidery, Brent didn't go quietly. He tried one more event, a men's retreat at a short-term rental by the lake. He advertised cold plunges and alpha mindsets. Delia sent the rental owner a copy of his delinquent license status and the recorded apology line where he admitted to selling programs I didn't deliver. The owner canceled. Brent posted a photo of a mountain and wrote, "On to the next." Men like him always say that. The next is always a cliff. I wish I could tell you that was the end. It wasn't. These things never end with a gavel or a single apology. They end with a slow rebuilding, a payment at a time, a phone set to do not disturb, a girl who decides not to explain herself to the internet. They end with family dinners where we do not talk about the man unless we have to. And when we do, we use verbs. But if you've made it this far with me, you deserve to know. The final twist, the one people always ask for in the comments when they write "update," wasn't a gotcha or a Hollywood moment. It was a decision, and it was mine. I'd been holding one last thing since the wedding. Not the receipt everyone saw. Something else. And it was time. I know this part is hard to hear, but it's important. The truth was about to come out, and it was going to be glorious. Here's the thing I hadn't told you. My last card, tucked beside the teaspoons. The night before the wedding, I signed a little document with Delia that I called the stewardship letter. It wasn't flashy. No seals, no Latin. Just a notarized memo in plain English that said, my engagement ring would never be gifted in a moment of sentiment again. It would be placed in a simple living trust in my name with one successor steward, Haley, if and only if she met a set of quiet, grown woman conditions over a year. 5 on-time payments, completion of a financial literacy course at the community college, 3 consecutive months with money in her emergency fund, a personal letter to herself acknowledging her part in the mess, and a final one to me, in verbs, not vagueness. If she didn't meet them, the ring would pass to the local historical society that runs a tiny wedding museum with lace veils and old photographs, where a volunteer named Dot would keep it safe in a glass case, and no YouTube groom would ever touch it. I kept that letter sealed and filed. I told exactly 2 people, Delia and the head cashier of the jeweler, because I wanted a witness who wasn't family. At the wedding, when the room gasped at the pawn shop receipt, I was already holding the harder gift she didn't know about, the chance to earn something and keep it. After the meeting where Brent said the verbs out loud, where checks were photographed and refunds logged, life didn't swell into a symphony. It clicked back into the everyday. Laundry cycles, therapy Tuesdays, payments that posted while the coffee maker dripped. Haley moved into Linda's for a while, the spare room with the faded floral comforter and the window that faces the maple. She started taking a night class called Money 101, where a retired banker named Rita taught grown teenagers and teenage grown-ups how to make a budget that wasn't a suggestion. Haley learned about compound interest and called me at 9:30 p.m., so excited you'd have thought she discovered fire. Grammy, money can actually add up.
It can also slide down, I said. But yes, you caught one of the good parts. Brent, meanwhile, pinned himself to a new word, redemption. He filmed himself reading books with the spines barely cracked, posted photos of sunrises he hadn't earned, and hinted at an apology tour. He sent Haley flowers, lilies again, always so on the nose it was practically performance art, and texted her paragraphs at 2 a.m. about destinies and second chances and how haters couldn't kill a king. She used Do Not Disturb like a seatbelt and slept through the car crash of his grandiosity. A week after the meeting, Delia forwarded a note from the Attorney General's office, a request for records. Not a promise, but a nibble, she wrote. 2 victims filed formal complaints. Then 3 more. We weren't chasing him with torches. We were simply pointing again and again at the dark and saying, right here. Payment 2 showed up in my account on schedule with the memo line, promissory, thank you. Payment 3, too. Haley sent screenshots of a savings balance each month, a screenshot that grew green like a sprout in a jar on a windowsill. She started keeping receipts in a little accordion folder I bought her at the office supply store. We labeled the tabs together, rent, groceries, emergency fund, me. The last one made her laugh, an entire tab just for me? Women forget. The tab reminds. She got herself a cat. The good kind, indifferent until 10 p.m. and then affectionate like a drunk aunt. She named him Macaroni because he both loafed and stuck. She learned to cook 2 dishes so she wouldn't starve on principle, an enormous pot of chili you can freeze and a sheet pan chicken with lemon that tastes better than penance. On Sunday, she and Linda came to my house for dinner like it was church, and we talked about nothing special until we did. We became a table again. Brent, when the refunds hit and the venue bookings fell through, pivoted hard. He changed his Instagram bio from business architect to mindset mentor, then to story coach, because when you burn one bridge, you pretend the river moved. He set up a men's circle in a borrowed condo where the HOA rules explicitly forbid commercial use. The condo board, one of whom is a retired IRS auditor who smells fraud like pie in an oven, shut it down after one noise complaint and a photo of a flip chart that said wolf mode. I keep that photo printed in my binder. It cures my gloom better than vitamin D. And just when he thought he had me backed into a corner, he forgot who he was dealing with. Stick with me, because you'll want to see how this plays out. Mid-fall, the AG's office set one of those bureaucratic masterpieces I've learned to translate. It was an assurance of voluntary compliance proposal, which is government for we can't call you guilty, but we can make you behave. It required that Brent cease selling any program without proof of capacity to deliver, maintain a separate escrow account for client funds, honor refund policies in writing, and submit quarterly reports for a year. He could sign and live clean, or decline and face a deeper look. He signed. Men like him are brave until the paper shows up. Haley went to the courthouse and asked quiet questions about legal separation. She sat with a social worker who smelt faintly of eucalyptus and kindness and learned she didn't have to pick a forever answer today. She organized her documents in a manila folder and tucked it into the glove compartment because she felt safer with it near. She did not file that day. I didn't push. If motherhood taught me anything, it's that planting a flag for someone else almost always makes them want to camp somewhere else out of spite. By Thanksgiving, Haley had made 4 payments. She brought rolls to my house, warm in a towel like newborns. Linda made sweet potatoes with marshmallows because we are Midwestern at heart, even if we live in a coastal zip code. I set the table with the lace cloth I'd offered to the wedding and never lent. Before grace, I tapped my knife to my glass and said, I'm thankful for many things this year. Officer Martinez, who returns phone calls, Delia, who reads the fine print, and 2 women at this table who learn to sit with discomfort and not run. Also, for gravy that doesn't congeal. We laughed, we ate, we did what families do when they choose to stay a family.
December brought the 5th payment. On time, the memo line a single heart. Haley brought me her letter, 3 pages, written in her neat print, not a single but in the parts that mattered. She wrote, I pawned the ring. I lied. I hurt you. I believed someone who told me you would forget. I chose the easy story until it got hard. Then she wrote, I am making amends, and listed the verbs. Paid, called, returned, apologized, blocked, saved. She cried a little at the end, then wiped her face and made tea. That's how you do it. When she left, I sat with the letter like it was a quilt I could wrap myself in. Then I went to the safe. I took out the powder blue box, the real one, the pretty one, and the stewardship letter. I put the letter in an envelope with her name. I tucked the ring into my bra the way my mother used to carry mad money, and then I practiced how I would say the next part without turning it into a Hallmark commercial. I do love a Hallmark Christmas movie, but not in real life. I asked her to come by on a Tuesday, the quiet day between laundry and Linda's yoga class. I made pot roast because hard conversations go down softer with gravy. After dinner, I put the blue box on the table and slid it toward her. She looked at it, then at me. It's not a trick, I said. Open it. She did. The ring lay there like it had been waiting its whole life for that table, that light, that girl having learned the difference between pretty and precious. She put her fingers to her mouth, and for a second the room was 1999, and she was 4, and I had just given her a plastic tiara so she could be the queen of the living room. Grammy, she whispered. It still fits me, I said lightly, because if I got sentimental, I'd float away and bump my head on the ceiling. And it might fit you one day, if that's ever right, but we're going to do this my way. Read what's under it. She lifted the ring and found the envelope. Inside, the stewardship letter, countersigned by Delia, the checkbox for each condition ticked off in my tidy hand, and a line that said, as of December blank, Haley Benson is named successor steward of the ring, under the following terms. It wasn't a deed to a house. It was better. A map for staying the person you've decided to be. Her eyes swam. She said, "Steward," she said aloud, "not owner." Owner is a word for land and laptops. This is family. We carry it. And if you ever forget what to do, you hand it back to me or to Dot at the museum. No shame, just truth. She nodded. What if... She glanced at her left hand. The wedding band stem sat there, simple and plain, a sentence she hadn't finished yet. What if he asks for it? He doesn't ask me anything, and if he asks you, you say no. She laughed through her nose, then slid the box back toward me. Keep it at your house for now. I want to be the kind of woman who wears it when it means something it didn't mean before. That, I said, is the smartest sentence you've said this year. Winter can feel like a test of faith, and that one did, especially the week Brent filed a small claims nonsense against Serena for defamation after she left a factual review that simply said, paid, service performed, payment reversed, refunded after counsel contacted. Delia sent the court a polite response with exhibits, and the judge, who looked like he'd seen every flavor of foolishness the county could serve, dismissed it in 11 minutes. Brent posted a cryptic story about corrupt systems and hustlers will rise. The only thing rising was his bounced check fee total. In January, the AG's office finalized that assurance agreement. It wasn't jail, it wasn't handcuffs, it was a leash with a bell. If he tugged, they'd hear. He signed a page that said, I will not misrepresent my qualifications, I will keep client funds segregated, and I will deliver what I sell or refund promptly. He used a pen that probably cost $2.99. Sometimes justice is a cheap pen making expensive promises. Haley took another class, Project Management 101. She started helping the boutique owner reorganize inventory and realized she didn't have to sell dresses to make a living around beautiful things. She could make chaos behave for money. She got a small raise, she saved a little more, the cat stopped biting ankles. Valentine's Day came and went with a text from Brent that said, "Remember Paris?" To which Haley replied, "We never went to Paris," and then blocked him again because some men think a memory is a suggestion.
In March, he moved to a short-term rental across town with a roommate who does Forex trading on a porch and vapes like it's a personality. He started calling himself a founder in stealth. I started calling him a boy with a Wi-Fi bill. Spring made us soft again. We planted herbs. We went to the farmer's market and bought tomatoes that tasted like apologies that stuck. Linda met a nice man at church who builds birdhouses and minds his business. I told her to go slow. She did, which is not her nature. She's learning to walk like someone who's realized the ground is there. Haley, one quiet Saturday, took off her wedding band and set it on a saucer next to my sink. I'm not making any announcements, she said. I'm just taking a break from wearing an idea. That's allowed, I said. Better to take off a ring than to put on a lie. In May, we had another meeting with Delia. Not in a sleek conference room this time, just at her office with coffee and a lemon loaf that I swear she bought to needle me. We reviewed the repayment log, amounts, dates, check images. He'd hit the marks, barely, because a man who lives on the edge knows the edge like a lover. If he missed, the claws would wake up and howl. He knew it. That's the only reason the calendar stayed honest. On the first truly warm day, I took Haley to the jeweler again. This time, she tried on a tiny gold band with a little inset sapphire. Cheap as far as jewelry goes, but it glowed on her hand like something she'd lit herself. She bought it with her own card, the one tied to the account with the emergency fund. She didn't ask my opinion. She handed the tiny box to the clerk herself and said, "I'll take it." She put it on her right hand and held it up to the light. "This one is from me," she said. "It suits you," I said. "You look like a woman with a plan." We walked past the case where the old rings live, estate pieces and velvet beds. The jeweler, my witness, who is also a gossip in the kindest way, leaned over the counter and said, "Sometimes when a ring passes to the right hands, the light in the store changes." I smiled. The light hadn't changed. We had. Summer rolled in. The AG letter turned into a short public notice on their website, the kind no one reads unless they're looking for it. Assurance signed with local business owner.
No names in bold font, no victory parade. That's okay. Winning quietly beats losing loudly every time. And then, because life likes a bookend, an invitation arrived addressed to Ms. Carol Benson and guest for a little ceremony in a municipal building. Haley, filing her legal separation, wanted me and Linda to be there. We sat on hard chairs and watched a clerk who has seen it all stamp her papers with a loud thwack. Haley's hands didn't shake. Brent didn't show. She walked out into the sun, turned her face up like a flower, and said, "I'm not sure I'm divorced yet." "You're not," I said. "You're separated." She smiled. "But I'm definitely married to myself." When we got back to my house, I made iced tea. I poured 3 glasses, and then on an impulse that wasn't an impulse at all, went to the safe. I took out the blue box and set it on the table next to Haley's new little sapphire band. "One more thing," I said. She looked at me like she hadn't learned to expect the soft surprise, the kind that doesn't come with a catch. "Grammy." "It's time," I said. "Not to keep it at your house, not to wear it every day, but to try it on and walk around the living room and see if it feels like part of your story or just a pretty stone with a past." She slipped it on and stood up a little straighter, the way women do when something fits that isn't clothes. She walked to the window and turned her hand in the sun. The diamond winked at the maple and the maple winked back. She wore it for an hour while we played rummy and let it catch the light on her knuckles so she could feel what power that wasn't borrowed feels like. Then she put it back in the box and slid it across the table. "Not yet," she said. "I'm proud of you," I said. "Pride is free, it just takes practice." By the time fall came back around and leaves started doing their performance art, Brent had moved again and soft-launched a podcast about resilience that got 10 listens the first week and 9 the second. The refunds were done, the vendors healed, the exes blocked him for sport. He didn't go to jail, he didn't evaporate, he did something harder for men like him. He got small.
As for me, I went back to being the woman I was before I had to be a belle, the one who labels the freezer containers and makes banana bread for new neighbors. I keep the binder on a shelf, not because I need to shake it at anyone, but because it reminds me what happens when a woman gathers paper like kindling and then lights a match made of patience. I also keep the second powder blue box, the empty one, on my dresser. Some days I open it and look at the hollowness, the way you stare into a well to make sure the water's still down there. It is. Emptiness is a choice, too. We can fill it with the next right thing. And because I know you want the clean ending with a bow, last week, on a cool Sunday that smelled like apples and school supplies, we had a family dinner. Haley came in wearing jeans, a white t-shirt, and a grin that wasn't for anybody else. She hugged me, set her purse on the chair, and then took the blue box out herself, unprompted. "May I?" "Always," I said. She put the ring on and didn't look at her left hand for permission. She looked at me. "I know what it means now," she said. "It's not a promise I made to a boy. It's a promise I make to myself." We ate roast chicken. We didn't say Brent's name. We didn't need to. The light in the room didn't change. We had. He was about to get exactly what he deserved, and I had a front row seat. But here's the secret they don't write on posters. What we deserved was better. We got it. Not because a judge clanged a gavel or a crowd cheered, but because a grandmother used a velvet box like a mirror and a map, and a granddaughter decided to read it. If you made it all the way through, thank you for pulling up a chair with me. Now, tell me, honestly, what would you have done in my place?
So another story of my grandmother has end, and be clicking here you will have when more such stories.